I'm going to try and just compare a few of the newer modes to what we conventionally do. And, new is relative to all of us. Dr. Praveen may be doing NAVA for many years. I've never done it. So basically, I'm going to not try and touch on all the modes because that too is impossible in 25 minutes. But basically on what we use and the ventilators that we are familiar with and the common modes that they have. So that's like PRVC, maybe volume assured pressure support, a little bit of APRV because a lot of our new ventilators now have APRV on them. And since a lot of us do sort of use HFO, let us look at a little bit of the data on HFO, and then hopefully I can finish a little fast and we'll have more experts than me tell us what they think. And I've taken a lot of slides from the net, from Spearman and Pitts. Now, why do we have these new modes? Because maybe the older modes were more passive, they were operator dependent, they didn't allow us to do a lot of adaptive, interactive ventilation, and goal-oriented ventilation was not really patient-centered. And with the newer microprocessor control ventilators, we had better exhalation valves that were easier to deal with, inhalation valves that had little open gates, better monitoring capabilities. Now all our ventilators, we can actually see the graphs. Whether that helps us or not is a moot point, but certainly better patient-ventilator interaction, and definitely dual modes of ventilation were introduced. Now what are these dual modes actually? How do they help us is something I'm going to talk a little bit in detail on. What are our goals? We keep talking about lung protection strategies, and we heard that this morning in details, which I understood some of it, I didn't understand all of it. But basically what we try to do is open the lung, keep it open so the shearing forces are less, alveolar collapse is less, alveolar over-distension is less. And then we try to maintain and restore FRC through PEEP and recruitment maneuvers. And then after the initial, maybe for many of us, after the initial phase is over, we do try to have much more patient-triggered ventilation, so there's good patient synchrony as far as possible. And how do these modes help us? What is a dual mode, first of all? It's a mode that takes into account controlling pressure or volume, but controlling one while giving the other, and giving the other while controlling one. And it can be within a breath, so it can switch from pressure control to volume control within a breath, or more commonly is our PRVC mode, which we are very familiar with, from breath to breath. Let's see how it does this. In PRVC, we know that we can set a pressure limit and we set a volume target, and it starts with maybe 5-6 centimeters above the set PEEP level, and then it tries to achieve the volume target, and then it goes on for 1 or 2 breaths, trying to go about 75% of the targeted pressure to the pressure limit that you've targeted, trying to keep the pressure at least 3 to 5 centimeters below the pressure limit set. And if it doesn't achieve that volume, it doesn't allow the pressure to go beyond that and tells you that the volume target is not met. And that is how you try to limit your pressure, but at the same time you try to achieve your targeted volume. Now in this one, you cannot do it within the breath. Here it goes from 2 to 3 breaths, and now with the servo eyes, actually the algorithm says that it even does it breath by breath, and it's a much faster algorithm. But at the same time, you don't have all your breaths looking different. The important thing about this mode is, just with volume control or with pressure control, your pressure control, when you set a pressure limit, your volume will definitely go down if your compliance goes down. Here, if you set a pressure limit, your pressure will go up till, if your compliance goes down, till your volume target is met. But it will not go beyond your pressure limit. And therefore, at least you will be able to maintain your targeted volume. Does it really help people? Well, in very small babies, there's actually no real difference in morbidity, mortality, and there may be some problems with using ventilator in very small preterms. Nutritionally, not shown to make much of a difference. Children didn't really need more or less nutrition. O2 uptake was quite the same. Resting energy expenditure was quite the same. But then we don't expect that, because this study was done in very, very well sedated and mechanically ventilated patients. Let's go to the meat and potatoes of this. This study done in 2005 actually showed that PRVC did not help Kellett's patients. They all exceeded the volume targets of pressure of protective lung strategies and imprecise control of volume target. We have also often seen this, haven't we, when we deal with very, very stiff lungs in an severely ARDS patient, and very often you have to keep revising your volume targets. Now we know that we revise our volume targets downwards rather than upwards in order to protect the lung. But at the same time, in post-op cardiac patients, hemodynamic stability was well maintained. There was definitely a reduction in the PIP, and most of these were crossover studies, and PIP was significantly lower in most of these studies that I came across. Looking at outcome differences between regular conventional ventilation with volume control or even pressure control versus PRVC, there was no significant mortality change, no difference in length of ventilation, and no difference in chronic lung disease. So if we are just looking at PIP and looking at that, there was a significant lowering of your peak inspiratory pressures, and with good hemodynamics with this. So small randomized trials, no survival benefit, no difference or shorter ventilation times, less interventions in blood gases, maybe. Safe, small differences, lower PIP, maybe some shorter time to extubation. Just one word on volume support. It is not like pressure support. It is more like PRVC. Because here what happens is the same way as in PRVC, a test breath is given, then the pressure is increased slowly till a target volume is achieved. And in the same way as PRVC, the target volume is achieved by increasing the pressure. And when there's an apnea pause and the ventilator doesn't detect a breath, it reverts to a PRVC mode. So volume support is not like pressure support. It is much more like a PRVC mode. I'd like to talk about this mode because more and more ventilators give you this mode nowadays, although it is a mode that is a trade name for the Puritan Bennett and one other ventilator. It starts by giving you pressure control. So actually there is a very rapid initial flow, and we just heard from Professor Marini that that may not be a good thing. But this ventilator will do that. It will give you a very rapid initial flow, and then it tries to achieve a target volume. And after that, if it cannot achieve a target volume, it continues the flow at a preset flow level. It doesn't increase the flow, but allows the flow to be then continued at a preset flow level, which will actually increase your I time until the volume limit is reached. And what happens is that it looks like this. If your volume limit is reached, your flow will end. But if your volume limit is not reached, it will either change to volume control and your flow will go on, or it will then change, it will increase your I time and your flow will go on, so it will switch from pressure to volume flow control. How do you control volume? By flow and I time. So these two parameters will interchange, and it will change from pressure control to volume control, where your flow and I time will increase, and you will continue on till you get your targeted volume. So if you look at this, no two breaths will look the same on your graphs. On your scalars, no two breaths will look the same. But what you will get with this is a targeted volume every time. So your volumes will remain constant. Very, very early on in early studies, it was shown that workload on the muscles did decrease. And even if there was an intrinsic PEEP, it decreased. And an assured VT was given more than your pressure-regulated volume control. And it seems to improve ventilator patient synchrony. Now, if PRVC and volume support and all this works so very well with us, why are we continuously looking for fancier modes? Is it only because we want to buy more expensive ventilators? That may actually be one of the things, because so much of this is what the vendors tell us. And so why do we look at more patient-triggered modes? We know that we want to use the muscles as much as possible. We can't use them all the time in the very, very early stages when the patients are very sick, the demands are high, and we still want to reduce rates and we want to reduce flows. We know that when you use positive pressure ventilation, I'll rather show you a slide, when you're using paralysis, the diaphragm actually goes up. So these areas of the lung get flow, but they don't get airflow. They get blood flow and no airflow. So VQ mismatch actually increases in this area. So if you paralyze a patient, this is not good. This area gets worse and worse. And then you need to prone, etc. Whereas if your patient is spontaneously breathing, your VQ mismatch is much, much improved in this area of the lungs, which we're always looking at when you're dealing with sick patients. So therefore, things like bi-level ventilation allow the patient to breathe at different levels of ventilation. The patient can breathe at a high level and at a low level, but at the same time, there has to be a PEEP going on. The PEEP never goes down to 0. So you put a T high and a T low, bi-level ventilation. Now, on top of this, you can actually add a pressure support at either level. You can have the pressure support at the T low, or you can even have the pressure support at the T high. Does this work? Yes, but the patient has to be spontaneously breathing, and there can be some issues with patient comfort. This mode is not very, very well tried in the smaller infants, but in older patients, you can certainly try it. You can try it both invasively and non-invasively. And one advantage of BiPAP, BiVent, or any of these methods is that when you send the patient home, neuromuscular patients, etc., they can be sent home with all kinds of ventilators, very easy even for them to adjust. So certainly these modes do help us over the older modes of ventilation, because now we do send quite a few of our neuromuscular patients on home ventilation. They used to stay for months in the ICUs otherwise. So that is certainly an advantage. One of these bi-level modes is APRV. There are many names for it. APRV is a Draeger mode, but you can call it bi-level, you can call it BiVent, you can call it by many names. What is it actually? It is a mode by which you have 2 levels of ventilation over a long one and a short one. The short one is a very low drop in time where the plateau pressure drops very rapidly for a very short period of time. And the reason for that is so that you get a very brief expiratory time. The brief expiratory time is only so that you eliminate CO2 and you prevent atelectasis from occurring. At the same time, if you allow it to happen for too long, your expiratory flow goes down to 0. So that brief expiratory time is so expiratory flow never goes down to 0. APRV, PEEP is always maintained. You never go down to 0 PEEP. So there is a PEEP and there is a T high, just the same as in the bi-level, and there is a T low. And this, your T high and your T low, we won't go into the details of this because we don't have time, but it is, with a little bit of practice, it is not a very difficult mode to actually use. Some people call it the poor man's HFO, etc., but it doesn't exactly work as HFO. And the patient can spontaneously breathe at both levels. And that's the important thing, that the patient can actually be spontaneously breathing. It's used in bilateral infiltrates, therefore ARDS, when the PF ratios are low and the plateau pressures are rising. Preferably when there's no heart failure, but it has also been used in post-op cardiacs, etc. And in other words, in persistent ARDS, we have tried it in that. Possible contraindications of bronchopulmonary fistula, in major air leaks, a possible obstructive lung disease, and technically you can possibly use it in any disorder. Remember though that atelectasis can develop in seconds if the PAW is allowed to drop below a critical point. Therefore, you must have a baseline PEEP on it. You never use a P low at 0 PEEP. You have to have a baseline level of PEEP. And too long a release time. You can't have the T high and the T low at the same time, because too long a release time will also interfere with oxygenation and cause the lung to collapse, and you'll get an ARDS lung that's collapsed like this. So what are the advantages? And these have been shown in several studies. It is not actually a new mode. It has been used for many, many years. Right from the 80s it's been used. It allowed good oxygenation to be maintained using a lower PIP level. And it can be used even along with ECMO, because you're using very, very low rates. Sometimes the patient can even spontaneously breathe on ECMO. So you're using a lower PIP, maintaining oxygenation without compromising the patient's hemodynamics, therefore useful even in post-op cardiacs, shown to improve VQ mismatching. OI improved in pediatric patients. These were case studies. And optimizes lung volume at lower PIPs and keeps the lung well recruited at most levels of recruitment maneuvers. And in one study, the large collapse, all kinds of maneuvers were used, including scopy, lung inflation maneuvers, etc. And finally, the lung only opened up on APRV. That was just a case report. What did it do to hemodynamics? In this study, which was an RCT, pressure use was substantially decreased, lactate levels decreased, cardiac index improved, oxygen delivery improved. So all hemodynamic parameters actually improved on APRV. Compared to pressure controlled inverse ratio ventilation, which is a mode sometimes when push comes to shove in an ARDS, you're forced to use this mode if your oxygenation index is just not improving and you don't have HFO to go on. This mode may actually be useful because it protects your hemodynamics. Let's go to a mode that many of us can actually use also and compare it to other modes of ventilation, HFO and ARDS. We know that lung recruitment can be achieved with minimal peak trough variations because in HFO you don't have opening and closing of the alveoli and you don't have those rates that cause shearing injury, at least in theory. So it could be used for children requiring high PAWs, and we try to use it when the FiO2 requirements are above 60 and the P plateaus, you can't bring them down less than 30, and oxygenation indexes are rising. It is not useful in the late phase of fibroproliferative stage of ARDS when the alveolar architecture is severely damaged and fibrosis has set in. So a large study on preterms, outcome measures were death and BPD. No subgroup benefit was found to be more or less with HFO, and whether they used the actual oscillator or whether they used the baby log or the Hamilton, it really didn't make a difference. The outcomes were really the same. Now, in RCTs, there are a few in HFO in children, and in the early RCTs, they found that the earlier you instituted HFO, the better your survival rates would be. The later you instituted it, the worse off you always were, and this has been replicated several times. So early HFO improves oxygenation and certainly improves survival also. Also, I'd like to point out, and this is, I think, something that even in the adult literature you see, and even when you're ventilating older children, you see that high body weight was a poor risk to HFO. So even if you have a child, but who's really a large body weight for his age and height, that is a poor risk for HFO, and survival falls in that. Another graph here that shows you that if you start HFO when the oxygenation index is 20 or lower, your survival is much, much better, and this is an outlier 30. So HFO should be started early. It's effective and safe even in adults, but the adult studies are not as many as the pediatric studies, and outcomes are better if you use it at oxygenation indices less than 20 and you use it early. Now, this is a systematic review of many modes of ventilation done in 421 children, where the authors have compared 5 trials of 6 modes of ventilation. I don't know what the volume diffuse respirator is. It's a different kind of ventilator that actually also helps suctioning out secretions. HFO, pressure control, pressure support ventilation, volume support, and BiPAP were compared in this review, and the outcome measures were length of ventilation, oxygenation, mortality, and weaning. And in length of ventilation, HFO compared to conventional ventilation, there was a definite increase in actual length of ventilation with a overall higher length of ventilation. Mortality did not show any difference in the two. But oxygenation did improve in all the trials, and when HFO was used along with inhaled nitric oxide, in one trial, there was a significant mortality data difference. Key messages in all this is there's actually no concrete evidence that one mode of ventilation is going to improve your mortality data drastically as compared to any other out of the newborn period in critically ill children. Different modes have not yet been investigated in large groups of children. Oxygenation definitely improves over 72 hours when patients treated with HFO. Outcome studies are mixed. HFO, when tried early, seems to definitely help. Get familiar with what you have. Learn to use that well. Patients with ventilation, standing by your bedside, watching your patient and ventilator interactions is much more important than trying to learn a new mode every day, because mastering what you have, gentle, calm ventilation is actually the key, at least till today. I don't know what we'll learn tomorrow. And don't get carried away by vendors trying to sell you ventilators which have 100 new modes and will not really help you, because you'll get more confused when you're faced with panels that have 100 different knobs on them. And conventional ventilation using protective lung strategies will actually go a long way in the right hands. And for starting ventilation, that would be the best way to go. And if you're learning a new mode, use it carefully. And this is our Bombay ceiling. And this is a child with Pompei's disease 4 days before she died. So you can suddenly die and look like this 4 days before that. Thank you very much for a patient hearing.